Trump warns Iran to make nuclear deal or next attack will be far worse. China relaxes visa rules for UK citizens on PM's trip to Beijing. Trump weighs Iran strikes to inspire renewed protests, sources say. U.S. Senate Democrats demand immigration reforms to avert shutdown. EU set to put Iran Revolutionary Guards on terrorist list. U.S. President Donald Trump has issued a fresh warning to Iran, urging Tehran to negotiate a nuclear deal or face a much stronger American military response. In a social media post, Trump said Iran must come to the table and agree to a deal ensuring no nuclear weapons. He warned that time is running out and that any future U.S. attack would be far worse than previous strikes. Trump also confirmed that a U.S. naval armada, led by the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln, is now positioned near Iran. Iranian officials responded with sharp warnings of their own. Senior advisor Ali Shamkhani said any U.S. military action would result in Iran targeting American and Israeli interests, as well as their allies. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi added that Iran's armed forces are ready to respond immediately and powerfully to any aggression. At the same time, Araghchi said Iran remains open to a fair nuclear agreement, but only without threats or coercion, and insists its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes only. China has agreed to allow visa-free travel for British citizens on short visits, marking a major step in improving UK-China relations during Prime Minister Keir Starmer's visit to Beijing. Under the new policy, British passport holders will be able to enter China without a visa for stays of up to 30 days. Starmer described the move as a win for British businesses, saying companies have been eager for easier access to the Chinese market. The agreement is part of a broader UK-China partnership aimed at boosting economic cooperation. Both sides also agreed to launch a feasibility study that could lead to a future services trade agreement, helping British firms expand operations in China. Britain hopes the deal will strengthen key sectors including finance, healthcare, legal services, education, and professional consulting. Currently, the UK exports around £13 billion worth of services to China each year, and officials say Chinese demand for British services is rising. U.S. President Donald Trump is considering military options against Iran, including targeted strikes on Iranian security forces and senior leaders, according to sources familiar with internal discussions. Two U.S. officials said Trump wants to create conditions that could encourage public uprisings against Iran's government, following a violent crackdown that killed thousands of protesters earlier this month. Options reportedly include strikes on commanders and institutions blamed for the repression, as well as possible larger attacks on Iran's ballistic missile sites or nuclear facilities. However, sources stressed that Trump has not yet made a final decision on whether to launch military action. The recent arrival of a U.S. aircraft carrier and supporting warships in the Middle East has expanded Washington's ability to act, after Trump repeatedly threatened intervention over Iran's crackdown. Arab and Western officials briefed on the discussions warned that military strikes could backfire, potentially weakening Iran's protest movement rather than strengthening it. Senate Democrats are pushing for significant new restrictions on federal immigration agents, setting up a high-stakes confrontation with the Trump administration that could trigger a partial government shutdown as early as this weekend. What Democrats want: immigration agents, such as ICE and Border Patrol, to stop wearing face masks during operations. Mandatory use of body-worn cameras and visible identification. Agents to follow the same use of force standards that apply to local police departments. Requirement that agents obtain judicial search warrants rather than internal Homeland Security approvals. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer says his party will not support extending Homeland Security funding through September without these reforms, directly linking the issue to the controversial immigration crackdown and recent deaths during enforcement operations in Minneapolis. European Union foreign ministers are expected to approve a decision Thursday to designate Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, as a terrorist organization. The move comes in response to Iran's violent crackdown on anti-government protests in January, in which thousands of people were reportedly killed. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said the decision sends a direct message to Tehran. "If you act as a terrorist, you should be treated as a terrorist," she told reporters in Brussels. The designation would place the IRGC in the same category as groups such as Al-Qaeda, Hamas, and the Islamic State. The IRGC is Iran's powerful ideological military force, created after the 1979 revolution to protect the ruling system and enforce its Islamist doctrine. Its Basij volunteer units have played a central role in suppressing recent protests. The decision is largely symbolic, but politically significant. France and Italy, which had previously opposed the move over concerns for European detainees in Iran and diplomatic ties with Tehran, have now agreed to support the listing. Kallas emphasized that diplomatic channels with Iran are expected to remain open despite the designation.